Greetings, and thanks for being with me again to consider the church. What is it, and what is it really supposed to be doing? Sisters and brothers in Christ, there are those who view the church as something like a performance venue. Those who think of it as a vehicle for certain kinds of public rites of passage, like weddings and baptisms, confirmations and funerals. The people who think of it as a performance venue judge the church as having done a good job if they feel entertained or if they enjoyed the performance. Those who look to it as the place for these kind of rites of passage in life are those that we really don't see except for these events. There are people who literally don't darken the door of the church again from the time they're confirmed until there's a funeral. In the meantime, in between these life transitions, lots of these folks offer no support to the church. They don't participate. They do not contribute money to keep it going, but they certainly want it to be there when they have a crisis or a death. Expressive of this basic kind of orientation is a statement I used to hear frequently from 18 or 19-year-old college freshmen. They'd come into one of our basic introductory religion courses, and they would say things like, "You know what? The church is whatever you make it." And I'm sure that's what they heard from their parents or something like that. I heard that statement 1,000 times, and they would say it kind of offhandedly as if this is sort of true knowledge that they have. Well, the church, don't you know? The church is whatever you make it. And my most basic answer to that statement, my most basic response to that statement is simply, no. The church is not whatever you make it. In fact, to the degree that someone might be successful in making the church what they want or what they desire, precisely to that degree, it probably has stopped being the church. To the degree the church bends to my will and becomes what I desire or demand, it's not the church. Because the will that must be broken, the will that must be reoriented, redirected, reshaped, redeemed, and remade is my will and the will of anyone else who comes through the door. The mind, the intentions, the habits that must be altered and renewed are mine and those of anyone else who comes through the door. But of course, that entails humility. It requires of me a proper humility. I must constantly accept that I might be wrong. Indeed, I am likely to be wrong. It means that the things that I think, the things I believe, I may well have wrong and mixed up. The truth is, sisters and brothers in Christ, that many, many people who are attached to the church and believe that what they believe and think is really Christian are actually thinking and believing a kind of mythology that's only loosely connected to Jesus, that only in a vague way has to do with the biblical God or with the Bible itself, even though they might pull out a couple of sentences here and there that make it seem like their mythology is somehow supported by the Bible. No, when I walk in the door of the church, I have to take a deep breath and understand that my way of thinking and my way of believing might be too simplistic. Not simple, but simplistic. It might be too shallow. I must constantly assume that it's absolutely necessary for me to grow deeper, to rethink, to relearn. I must learn to love better, to hope more extravagantly, to believe more daringly, to live in a way that is more faithful to Jesus Christ, that is more about taking up a cross and following Him. I must be far more willing to leave behind all the trappings of this life, money, success, possessions, comfort, pleasure, and the like. Only the church can help me to live against the grain of the world in order to live with the grain of God's kingly rule. Thank you, sisters and brothers in Christ. I so appreciate your presence with me. Please join me next week as we carry on our discussion of the church.